Do you
Please
want me to start?
welcome,
Go ahead.
please welcome Mushroom Montoya.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here tonight. My story deals with the issue of injustice cannot be fixed with another form of injustice. If you look behind me, you will see the Navy ship that I was on in 1972. I worked for a very, very racist chief who was hated by pretty much all of the minorities on the ship. After we left Vietnam, we were going to continue on an around the world tour. And we stopped for 5 days in Mombasa, Kenya. Now, Mombasa, Kenya, I was so excited. We were all excited because we were told that we would get to go on a 5-day safari. We could ask for leave. And since we were there for R&R, for the most part, we should be able to go. Well, my boss pretty much denied me and all the other minorities from going, and which was disappointing to say the least. One day, when we were there, I went into town and I got something to eat, and I wanted something sort of exotic, something I couldn't get in the States. And it was kind of a curry dish, as I remember. And after I left, because I was by myself, because a lot of the guys had gone and often to do fun things. And while I was walking back towards the ship, I saw these two gargantuan concrete white tusks in front of this place called the Elephant Bar. And I heard Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On" playing. It's American music. So I figured I would go in, thinking that certainly they should be able to speak English if they're playing American music, maybe. So I went in, and when I was there, I had to my eyes had to get adjusted to the light, and then I heard American voices, and I looked up in the corner of where the bar was, and I saw all these guys standing up, and they were yelling at somebody. And so I was kind of concerned about whether or not I should maybe leave. But one of the guys saw me, and it was the guys on my ship, and they called me over, and they were yelling at somebody in the middle of their circle. And there were several of them, maybe about 15 guys, and they were all African Americans from our ship. And there's this guy in the middle, he's kind of chunky, bald head, wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And so they called him a racist bastard. And when I walked into the circle, he looks up, he puts up both of his arms, and he goes, "Tell them I'm not like that. They don't understand." And one of the guys came over, punched him in the chest with his finger, and said, "You're a expletive liar. You're a damn racist, and we're going to beat the shit out of you." And now my adrenaline starts pumping like crazy because I'm not liking where I am. I'm not liking what I'm seeing. And one of the guys turns to me and he goes, "Mushroom, since you have to put up with so much of his shit, we're going to let you take the first punch." Now, to be honest, part of me would have liked to have taken that first punch, but that's not my nature. That's not who I am. And I looked at the guys and I said, "We can't hit him as much as we want to, because if we hit him, then we will be going down to his level, and we will only justify his racism. And he will also find a way to punish us, because we have to step above it. We have to be better than this." And so the guys are kind of looking at me, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And I said, "No, we have to. Think about it." So they parted to let him out. And one of the guys walked right next to him, and he said loud enough for me to hear, because I was pretty much walking behind, "If I ever catch you harassing Mushroom or the other two guys that work for you, I will throw you overboard. I'll kill you myself. We're tired of putting up with your shit." So the chief went back, and I followed behind him at a distance, pretty much to make sure that none of the guys who were in that circle decided to beat him up anyway. The next morning, we were all called to muster. And so after formation, after he let us all go, he called me over. So I'm thinking, "Oh shit, he's going to yell at me." what happened last night. And he goes, come here, I want to talk to you about last night. I want to find out why you did not punch me. Because if I'd been in your shoes with all that extra support, I certainly would have punched me. And I said, well, your answer's in my performance evaluation. He's going, what? And I said, yeah, after you graded me on my performance, you wrote down that I'm a peacenik. I am. So what else would you expect? So what I want to leave you with this story is that violence never solves a violent action. We are better than that. Thank you.
Ah, so good. Yeah, love. Love is where it's at. Love can solve so many things. I love your disposition. You're such a gentle soul, and it's interesting for me to look at this ship behind you, and I know you were in the war, and I have a hard time. I guess we live so many lifetimes in our one lifetime. I know you as a writer and as an artist and as this gentle, gentle soul. So, and I guess you were then too, because you were still advocating for peace and love then.
Yeah, and sometimes we, in order to strengthen who we are or to recognize who we are for our true essence, is we jump into becoming who we are not.
Mm,
And then we go, holy shit, this is not who I am, and then we grow from that.
yeah.
All too often it's quite painful, but we do grow from that.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable parts in our life, it is where the growth occurs, unfortunately, but it's true. There's a lot of growth to be had in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mushroom, I know you've now shared with the community theater a few times, um, and you've become a fast favorite of a lot of people. So, thank you for sharing with us a few times. But I'm curious about this event because it was different than what we usually do. Usually, it's a little lighter. You've actually shared some harder things too. Already, but this overall had a different feel from what we usually do, and I'm just curious for you what it was like coming into the event, any emotions or any thoughts you had prior to sharing, and then also just what you thought of the way the community reacted to you and to the other storytellers, if you can speak to that.
Well, I see any kind of a storytelling event is also uh, a teaching event as well as a releasing event.
Mm,
Sometimes we have things that we have buried inside of ourselves that need to be told. And sometimes those stories that we tell have more value for the listener rather than the person telling it.
yes.
And I know that from telling stories about organ donation and telling my son's story about how he donated his organs and talking about what it's like to be a bereaved parent. And so many people come up to me afterwards and say, that meant so much to me. And it's hard sometimes for me to tell. Now, in this particular situation, when you asked about injustice, this was one of the first memories that came. And the reason it came was for what I was saying before, that this is a situation that was unjust and there was a resolution. Revenge was not it, even though I
Yes.
had the opportunity. Uh, and I would love to actually find this chief because I have him listed, if you want to call it that, in my list of teachers,
Ah,
albeit a rather cruel one, but but a teacher nonetheless. And so we should be grateful for all of our teachers, regardless of how kind or unkind they are.
oof. Oof. You're touching me in a deep spot right now. Oh my gosh. I love the idea of the list of teachers, first of all. That makes me already, I'm like in the recesses of my mind thinking of the people that have taught me. I'm going to make a list. I love that. And you're right. Some of them, it's not an easy lesson or it hurt or
Yeah. No, because if we think about our first teachers, I mean, so many people that I talk to, I'll ask them, can you name your first grade teacher or your kindergarten teacher? And I have yet to find anybody who says they can't remember.
Mrs. Halbertson.
Yeah, they might forget their fifth or sixth or their high school teacher, some of them, but they always remember the first
Yep.
one. You
Yep.
know, uh,
Kindergarten teacher. I was always in trouble. I remember her. She probably remembers me too.
uh, yeah, there was Mrs. Weeks in the first grade and Mrs. Johnson in the second grade made me feel so special and so good. Uh, so I'll never forget her, and there's so many other teachers along the way. But every time we come together like this, in a venue like this, regardless of the story, whether it's a lighthearted story or whether it's like yesterday's, it was such a deep subject that needed to be talked about. As a shaman, I talk to people and I say sometimes words are the extractors to help pull out the pain. And some things are really, really hard to talk about. And I especially use this when I'm dealing with bereaved parents, because bereaved parents have such an incredibly hard time getting past that lump in their throat. So words are incredibly powerful and necessary, and the stories are necessary. And when we get it in the community like we did last night, and I saw that huge array of colored faces, everything from blonde, almost albino white to black, and everything in between, I said, this is my normal. This is how I want my kids to have their normal, with everything, with nobody having a hierarchy as to who was better than what, you know, other than somebody has a sing-song voice or somebody has a grovelly voice. We're not really distinguishing anything other than their particular qualities, whatever they are. And I love that about this particular community.
Yeah.
And I think to a certain extent, it's one of the reasons I like theater and I like thespians, because thespians as a group, at least my experience with thespians I've been around, are accepting of anybody that's willing to get up on stage. Because that takes guts. I don't know why it takes guts. I don't know why it's scary, but to get up on stage when you first, walk on, my butterflies are just flying like crazy. I mean, even a venue like this, beforehand our butterflies fly.
Oh yeah.
They're buzzing around.
So. Oh yeah. People don't believe that I get nervous before each event, but of course I do. I mean, anytime you're going to put yourself out there, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. You're putting yourself in a position to fail. Hopefully you don't, and hopefully it works out for the best. But you're putting yourself out there. And I love the statement that you made about the different faces that you saw looking back at you and our community, because we truly are blessed by the diversity of Long Beach, that is Long Beach. And we're so lucky to live here.
Well, it's one thing to go to a foreign country and see so many people that look alike. But when I went to Korea, I got off the plane and I walked into the airport, and it seems like everybody has black hair and they all look like Koreans. And then you go into town and you got millions of them. That's Korea. In the United States, I'm expecting to see everything because that has been my experience.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've been in parts of America where I only see blonde, blue-eyed white people.
Yeah.
And I've been in small areas where I've only seen black people. But those are very small, kind of segregated, usually poorer areas.
Yeah.
Like in parts of Texas, parts of Louisiana. But other than that, like, the bigger cities, you see all kinds of people. So, and that's my normal. That's how I want it. And that's what America is supposed to be.
Absolutely.
In probably 30 years ago, when I was an architect, not that far ago, maybe 25 years ago, I went to a conference in St. Louis where they have the arch. And it was on the Fire Protection Association learning process. So when I was there, we had a lunchtime break and I went across the street and there was an activity going on, and it was called the World of Difference. And this woman comes up to me and she's looking at me kind of odd and like wondering, and it's a look that I'm very used to. And the next thing out of her mouth is, "Can I ask you where you're from? What
Mm.
are you?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people are trying to look at my face and they're not quite sure where I fit. And I looked at her and I said, "Well, I'm an American. And because I'm an American, that means that I'm black, I'm white, I'm Hispanic, I'm Italian, I'm German, and I'm a Muslim, and I'm Catholic, and I'm Jewish, and I'm an atheist." And she goes, "Can you wait right here? I'll be right back." You know, which was okay, fine. She took off rather quickly and came back with the cameraman. And she says, "I'm on the I'm the anchor for the 5 o'clock news, and you're going to be on the 5 o'clock news tonight if you don't mind. I'm going to ask you the same question. Would you say the same thing, please?" You know,
That's awesome.
it's one of those things where I was kind of wishing that now my parents should be alive to see that when I'm on TV, it's for good things.
Yeah.
You know.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing Mushroom and for always just giving a piece of your heart. There's my little Nico stopping in to say hello. Let me go ahead and hit the stop button.